everything ends and it's almost never beautiful. Late in the 20th century, author-provocateur Bret Easton Ellis released a novel of such ambivalent amorality that by the time it reached cinema screens, its polarising literary reception had mutated into a divided consensus amongst marketing executives and film critics who didn't quite know what to do with it. While I'm referring to 1991's American Psycho and Mary Harron's exemplary adaptation of the same name, every word I just said also applies to its canonical brother, The Rules of Attraction. Retrospectively viewed by many as a minor work of nihilistic narcissism for Generation Abercrombie and Fitch, The Rules of Attraction is often misremembered as an inconsequential ripple emanating from the big splash of the frat bro comedy boom.
Excuse me, ladies. Hello?
In reality, it's a scathing satire of teen movie tropes and collegiate culture, reframing the keggers and casual hookups as a putrid petri dish for postmodern malaise and emotional dislocation.
I was born in a Holiday Inn.
Note to self, never shroom again. Only gets you into trouble.
At an upper-crust college, Sean, an anhedonic drug dealer, Paul, a bisexual social chameleon, and Lauren, a naive virgin, find their lives dovetailing in a warp-to-lust triangle of sex, lies, and privilege.
Oh my god. Harry tried to kill himself.
That is so typical.
If you look at the long history of Boys Will Be Boys One Last Hurrah Before Adulthood movies, they're often structured as a rite of passage. A transitional step from the wacky recklessness of youthful abandon to the sowing of wild oats and learning of lessons. Every abhorrent act of indiscretion, every potentially scarring experience, is just character-building grist for the mill. So let's look at how director Roger Avary takes those tired tropes of young adult friction and uses them to thoroughly deconstruct and decimate the noxious fallacy of love in the time of chlamydia.
Maybe it was the ecstasy I'm pretty sure she was on. Maybe it was that she thought she really loved me. She was crying, her face was slick, but she let him pull her clothes off. He can't remember the last time he had sex sober.
Pick any late teens comedy or college coming-of-age tale, and alcohol is the enabler of the outgoing and the social lubricant of the shy. It's symbolic of carefree fun and a shortcut to unbound honesty and stumbling silliness.
Love you, man. No, man. I love you.
Here, it's both medicine and poison. A pungent salve to numb the senses, block out the pretentious pontifications of random partiers, and self-medicate the wincing nights away. Or it's an off-the-shelf anesthetic, employed by opportunistic men to weaken their prey. Drugs here aren't party favours used to facilitate daft dancing or episodic adventures in the land of the high and the hallucinogenic.
Oh man, I got the f***ing munchies real bad.
In The Rules of Attraction, narcotics turn energy and ambition into a hovel of addiction and debasement.
Oh, I can feel my dick. I can feel my dick.
Where the suppliers aren't baggy passing Lotharios, so much as they're deadbeat customer service drones with shit pay, terrible hours, and the worst manager on earth.
You want some blood, motherfucker? You bring me my motherfucking cash, motherfucker!
As for sex, the gnarly mishaps and conquests turned commiserations of Jason Biggs are stripped of their spit-take hilarity by simply switching the gender and using a sledgehammer of explicit revulsion to remind the audience that consent is a thing.
I wish you wouldn't tell me shit like that.
The Rules of Attraction is well versed in these well-churned cliches of dorm rooms and dipshits, and opts to wallow in the disgust of just how grotesque all this sexualized slapstick is if you strip out the gooning laughter.
Yeah? Did you score some hot poon?
It's not about that.
No. It's about good times and cuddling up.
The cherry-busting, deflowering moment of victory we often see from the celebratory male perspective Bret Easton Ellis and Roger Avery shun that clean, cowardly fiction for an all too common but underaddressed facet of campus life. In the opening moments, we see an intoxicated and unconscious Lauren having her virginity ripped away by an unnamed extra who proceeds to vomit on her mid-rip.
When I came to, he was already f***ing me. But he didn't know that I was a virgin and that it hurt.
For Lauren, a joyous gift to be exchanged with someone who matters is dashed on the rocks of misogyny and apathy. A hellscape adorned with quid pro quo grooming professors and abstinence-only contraception.
Abstinence is 100% safe, which is less of a percentage than—
Whatever, I don't care, I don't major in math.
Then there's Lauren's friend Lara, who is drunkenly abused by an entire football team, and nobody ever mentions it again. What's being called out with such shuddering severity here is that the men in these kinds of stories typically don't have sex, they inflict it.
If there's grass in the field, play ball, you know?
Old enough to pee, old enough for me.
Animal House and Revenge of the Nerds both unambiguously show their lovable dweebs committing the most heinous sex crimes imaginable over and again. And American Pie has a bumbling dork secretly filming a naked teenager without consent.
Oh my god.
A sequence that was once deemed so acceptable that it was repurposed a year later as the inciting incident of Road Trip.
Hit the lights. It's boner time.
Now, I've had my share of laughs with those movies. I'm certainly not trying to make anyone feel bad for enjoying them, and I can already hear that it was a different time and you're just examining yesterday's media with today's eyes, defenses coming from a million miles away. But the Rules of Attraction goes to show that neither of those statements is true, and they never were. Everything I'm talking about is from a book that was released in the halcyon days of the campus sex comedy, that was adapted into a movie during the renaissance of those boner burlesques, and divided by decades in different mediums, both iterations of this story are predicated on the sobering realization that, once you sand off the rose-tinted hue of youthful ignorance, every one of these films is a work of horror. And there's nothing wrong with each one of us taking stock and seeing the terror in situations that were so often normalized as typical.
The inevitable conclusion. It's like bad poetry. And then what?
The Rules of Attraction isn't just here to play killjoy to the sex offenders so often lionized by leering comedic conventions. It's here to pour paint stripper on the cloying sentimentality and love at first sight schmaltz these same films tend to toss into the third act as a mea culpa cop-out intended to humanize the habitually awful. So rather than tail between the legs trash like this,
I'm doing it because I love you.
or the fingers down the throat wretch shown here,
And, I care about you a lot.
Oz, I know.
the best that our not at all a hero Sean Bateman can muster is,
I only did it with her because I'm in love with you.
and
When does f***ing somebody else mean that I'm not faithful to you?
isolated from the text, they're devastatingly funny, but when viewed as representations of the myopic, swaggering follies of young manhood, there's a puerile sincerity to statements like these that ring depressingly true.
I feel it now too. The truth is, I feel nothing.
The done-to-death staple of characters inexplicably falling for someone they cannot and do not know is unfurled and tossed in the dirt like the nonsensical infantilizing fantasy it is. Which I guess means that the Rules of Attraction has something thematically in common with Frozen?
You can't marry a man you just met. You can if it's true love.
Anna, what do you know about true love?
Paul loves Sean because he's handsome and emotionally unavailable. Sean proclaims his love for Lauren after one mundane flirtation outside a cancelled class, Lauren loves Sean based on the same one-off back and forth, and it's a faulty feeling that is further complicated by her betrothal to Victor, a man who literally does not know who she is.
How long have you been here? Why haven't you called?
This is embarrassing. I'm sorry. I don't have the slightest idea who you are right now.
The absurd amplification of these tenuous at best emotional connections is cranked up until it peaks with brutal clarity in a subplot where a secret admirer bombards Sean with romantic notes, complete with purple prose on purple paper. When the sender's affections go without reciprocation, they opt to drift off into oblivion with a razor blade and a bathtub in a scene so harrowing it's followed me around for over 20 years. As with every other instance of supposed unrequited adoration, it's a specious illusion. A corrosive longing born of nothing. No interactions, conversations, commonalities, or so much as a second glance. The rules of attraction constantly comes back to this idea that the idealized version of someone and the actual person seldom align.
Lauren, I want to know you.
What does that mean? Know me. Know me. Nobody knows anyone else, ever.
Each narrator is unreliable, every perspective is subjectively skewed by just how broken their moral compass happens to be, and all the declarations of love are mistakes based on lies. Those who make it out the end of all of this are forever jaded by it, as indicated by the reflective narration each of our main characters delivers from some undetermined future.
Everything is preordained, manifest destiny. You can stop time from happening no more than you can will the oceans to overwhelm the world, or to cause the moon to drop from her outer sphere.
Looking back at this liminal period in which their half-formed hearts were so foolishly throwing themselves into attraction and infatuation under the false assumption that they had a clue who they or anyone else truly was.
Just want to know who you are.
No one will ever know anyone.
This existential identity crisis is rammed home metatextually by the best use of subversive casting this side of Starship Troopers.
A great numb feeling washes over me as I let go of the past and look forward to the future.
James Van Der Beek, the titular softboy archetype of Dawson's Creek, is contorted into a narcissistic nymphomaniac who would sooner die than not get what he wants. Shannon Sossaman, whose only film credits before this were playing thankless trophy girls to be won by the hero as part of their quest for self-improvement, is given the interiority and characterization to highlight the thankless, regressive laziness of that kind of character writing.
He really likes you.
That's great.
Ian Somerhalder, fresh off the long-forgotten Dawson's Creek spin-off Young Americans, shapeshifts into a knowingly provocative boogeyman for the gay panic frat bros terrified that any man with a same-sex attraction is trying to trick straight folks into doing a gay. Then you've got Kate Bosworth, also from Young Americans, Remember the Titans' Kip Pardue, Seventh Heaven's Jessica Biel, and American Pie's Thomas Ian Nicholas, all of whom commit to the bit of burning their wholesome image to the ground and snorting the ashes.
What? Rusty pipes.
Now, given the crushing weight of the subject matter and the viciously transgressive tone of its scuzzy satire, it's a miracle that these performers can find pathos and fragility within characters that are, by design, mostly self-obsessed, detestable brats.
Pretend to be a vampire. I don't really need to pretend because it's who I am.
Van Der Beek is revelatory, and if the world worked as it should, this would have launched him in the same way American Psycho opened so many doors for Christian Bale. Somerhalder's unpredictable flits between serpentine and sympathetic make for a complicated, compelling example of queer representation from a time and place in teen cinema that seemed entirely incapable of such a thing.
Sorry, you were gay.
You, I'm no
You sure about that? I definitely detect a certain f***iness to you.
Sossaman's take on Lauren, as perhaps the only character with a shred of decency, feels like watching a portrait of optimism peeling away until all that's left is a world-weary, dejected frame.
It was Lorna Slavin's room, who was off campus at her boyfriend's house, probably swallowing his DNA.
Echoing the amoral disposition of J.G. Ballard and David Cronenberg's Crash, The Rules of Attraction never uses its authorial or directorial voice to assign judgment or indicate a moral perspective. It trusts its audience to know that bad things are bad without screaming, "Do you get it?"
I feed off of other people's real emotions. Search for this night's prey. Who will it be?
Instead, it leans into sociopathic desire and gently recalibrates Ellis's detached prose to suit an aesthetic vision far away from the flat, dead-behind-the-eyes photography of those the creators so clearly hold in contempt. A kegger shown in reverse hints at the fallibility of memory and the disputable recollections of each protagonist. A headrush montage of a semester abroad serves as a short film in its own right, a debauched document of pure id, and a clip show manifesto for Generation Rehypnol.
Ministry of Sound is dead, so I go to REM form, but it's game night. I find the one hetero girl in the place and we dry hump on the dance floor. We cab it back to home house. I strip her clothes off, suck her toes, and we hung out for 4 or 5 days, met the world's biggest DJ, Paul Oakenfold, kept missing the changing of the guard, wrote my mom a postcard I never sent.
Then there's the synchronized split screen that captures the dumbstruck, unthinkable bliss of love at first sight. A singular, simple moment between two train wrecks from opposite tracks, smouldering together as the fantasy and reality of their connection collides.
Saturdays suck ass. I don't have to put up with this shit. I'm dropping this ass.
Yeah, me too.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
None of these flourishes is ever overdone at the expense of the puking, thrusting diegesis of this pit stop on the path to becoming an actual person. A place where people are afraid to merge, it's less painful if you don't care, and better instead to disappear into the indifference.
You! And you! And you, pretty boy! And you all very much!
I'm out of here.
Have a good one!
While it's ostensibly a film about the college experience that doesn't feature a single shot of a class in session, The Rules of Attraction is better than just about any other Western narrative work at depicting and dissecting the experiential overload and pick-a-personality flux of trying to find yourself in an abyss of pure artifice.
Doesn't matter anyway. Not to people like him. Not to people like us.
Beneath all the substance use, there are substantive statements about the alienation and disaffection of youth and young adulthood, how higher education preaches individuality but teaches the unknowable divide between what we show and what we stow away. Beyond the turn-of-the-century stylistic signifiers, there are the stymieing reminders that the farcical fiction sold to us by the dog-fondling Van Wilders of the world is a nightmare of decaying mental health and take-no-prisoners misogyny.
You probably did it just to hurt me. Well, it worked, you hurt me.
The Rules of Attraction looks at its comedic counterparts with glazed-over derision and transforms their covert nastiness into overt condemnation without resorting to telegraphed intent or moralistic platitudes. Instead, it finds us ending precisely where we started, jumping back to the beginning of this whole thing where the only certainty is that A Jaeger bomb for our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becky O, Kay Kraus, Jennifer Fetish and Nicholas Lair Revere, and a James Vanderbeek crying meme for all these amazing folks who support us over on Patreon. So what are your favourite books and or films by Bret Easton Ellis, and what did you think about the rules of attraction? Let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to click the like button and share this with whoever you think might enjoy it, and if you're in a position to do so, consider checking out our Patreon at the link in the description below. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.